are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here. On this Thursday, May 16th, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show, talk about the Week 1 matchups with the NFL schedule coming out. We're going to talk about that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Christmas games that were announced that will be broadcasted on Netflix. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about the Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game as well. And then the fourth segment, I will continue my divisional rankings. I will talk about now today the AFC North, so I'll break down that division. And then in the final part of the show, I'll give you an update on Justin Jefferson and his contract situation. But once again, I am joined by a couple of guests, same guest as last week, joining me once again. And that is Manny of the Chip Shot Football Podcast and Emran, the host of the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Guys, great to have you on again. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, Kenneth. Thanks for having us on. Excited to talk about the schedule.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so let's get right into the Week 1 slate. So obviously, when it comes to the schedule, it's kind of like Christmas in May, to see all the matchups, when your team is going to play. I know, Manny, we were kind of talking about it off the air. Not really too thrilled with the Giants' schedule this year, and it seems like that's always a common thing. But, so the schedule's out, but we were going to just break down the Week 1 matchup. So there's definitely a few intriguing matchups. You got the Chiefs and the Ravens to start off the season on Thursday night. That's to get us all started. Then I also wanted to talk about a little bit with your team, Manny. They're playing against Kirk Cousins, his first game with the Falcons. And not only that, it's going to be an Arthur Smith revenge game because now he's the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. You also have the Browns and the Cowboys, which I talked about on a previous show. And then the Sunday night and Monday night games I think are going to be good. The Sunday night matchup, they played in the playoffs, but now Matthew Stafford once again will be returning to Detroit to take on the Lions. So I think that's going to be a great game. And then, if Aaron Rodgers plays more than 4 plays this time around, I think, that matchup against the 49ers could be a good game as well. So I want to get your guys' thoughts. What are some of your thoughts on the Week 1 slate? What's one game that stands out? Who wants to go first?
I'll let Emran go.
Well, there's a lot of good games in Week 1, just in general. I mean, you start off with the AFC Championship rematch, which, whenever you have two teams so obvious that they're gonna most likely be up, gonna be up there in the standings when it comes late into the season. I really don't like the fact that they play each other Week 1. I really don't like the notion of division games within the first 4 or 5 weeks, just because teams are early, they're still getting their foot in, teams steadily progress, and I don't like some of the important games being early, but there's the game in Brazil on Friday that's unique with the Packers playing the Eagles. I think the Eagles, this is kind of be their first opportunity to show that last year's ending was a fluke and this team got better. And then Green Bay, they have a chance to, replicate what they did at the end of last year. And then also, I have to speak about the Monday night game as a 49er fan. Last year, the 49ers, they got off to a very easy start the first 5 games. They didn't have much of a test. We thought maybe the Steelers could test us in Week 1, but that didn't really came out. And now I think the 49ers are fully going to be tested. I think this is a good Jets team. I think what they did offensive line wise to help Aaron Rodgers. I think Garrett Wilson this year is going to take the next level, having Aaron Rodgers all season, hopefully. And I think also another thing that's not talked about is the fact that Robert Saleh is going to be coming back. This is the first time he's coached against his former team. It's going to be at Levi's. So there's a lot of storylines there, and it's Monday night. It's a worthy Monday night game.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of other than just like the big ones, like you mentioned, Emran. There's some other interesting ones that I've just now sort of started looking into a little bit more. One of them is the Raiders at the Chargers is one that might not get a lot of headlines, but I think it's a little interesting just because you get the Raiders full new season with their new head coach Antonio Pierce, the new Jim Harbaugh era in Los Angeles. The game's going to be in Los Angeles, so that's exciting. First week there, first home game. How the Chargers look, how different do they look? What does the offense look now with Justin Herbert? I think that's going to be a pretty decent matchup between the two of them. And also another one that caught my eye is the Texans playing at the Colts, a divisional game there in the AFC South. But you get to see C.J.Stroud play against Anthony Richardson, which is going to be a great matchup because we didn't get to see too much of Richardson last year. He had some good games, I think, against I want to say the Jaguars and the Rams were his two best ones. But then other than that, we kind of were just robbed of seeing him play a full season. And not to say he could have had a season similar to CJ, he could have, but we don't know. But seeing those two young quarterbacks there, I think will be exciting. Then, like you mentioned, Kenneth, the Kirk Cousins against the Steelers in his first game, how that dynamic works there, and Arthur Smith going back to Atlanta, I think would be a good test for both teams, both young teams, new quarterbacks. So that'll be a good matchup, pretty close as well, I would think.
Yeah, and then the other matchup as well that I wanted to mention, the Titans and the Bears. So that'll be Caleb Williams' first start. And I know we're not going to talk about week 2, but then the following week we're going to see C.J. Stroud against Caleb Williams on Sunday Night Football. So I thought that's an
Wow.
intriguing matchup right out of the gate as well. And yeah, I mean what you said with Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud, we really didn't get to see much of Anthony Richardson because he got hurt earlier in the season. So hopefully we get to see both matchups. Hopefully we get to see both of them play each other twice this come around this year. And then a matchup that I think is kind of funny is in the late window is the Broncos and the Seahawks. Russell Wilson's former teams going at it, and
Yeah.
he's now with the Steelers. So I thought that was it's funny how they're playing each other, and he's not on either team anymore. And I'm curious to see what the Seahawks do at the quarterback position because they did acquire Sam Howell, and I've talked about this a few times on the show, but I think Sam Howell could definitely push Geno Smith for that starting job. And Geno Smith has done a nice job since he took over as the starter when they traded Russell Wilson. But I feel like Sam Howell could definitely, put up a fight for this starting quarterback job. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Also, some of the other games, you got the Commanders and the Buccaneers. Jaden Daniels, that'll be his first start against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Also, the Jaguars and the Dolphins. That's in the early window. That could be a good game, I think. Two teams from Florida playing each other in Miami. I think that could be an interesting matchup. And I know, speaking of the Dolphins, I know yesterday in the production meeting when I did when I told everyone what my AFC East rankings was, there was a very awkward silence. Putting the Dolphins at 3, and it is what it is. I'm going to stand by it, and we'll see how the season plays out. But yeah, so that was an interesting moment in the production meeting. But like I said, I'm going to stand by it, and we'll see how this season unfolds. Also, the Giants playing the Vikings. I mean, we'll see if J.J. McCarthy ends up starting, or is it going to be Sam Darnold? I feel like that could be a winnable game for the Giants because I don't really... the Giants, to me, I don't think are going to win a lot of games. I mean, I think most people agree with that. But I feel like with the uncertainty at quarterback for the Vikings, and if it ends up being J.J. McCarthy's first start, maybe the Giants have a chance to maybe steal that game earlier in the season, and it's a home game. So we'll see. Also, the Giants, Manny told me, and I had to check because I didn't realize they have new uniforms as well. Interesting design, I would say.
Yeah,
But
interesting colors on
yeah,
them.
yeah. So I'm
I
curious.
like their uniforms.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see when they're gonna wear that. I mean, it should be. I mean, I'm guessing it's gonna be a home game.
Right.
Maybe when Saquon comes back to MetLife, that that'd be a good
That would
time
be
to.
interesting.
But we'll see. And I think that's pretty much. Oh, then you got the Patriots and the Bengals as well. That's in the early window. Healthy Joe Burrow coming back. The Patriots. I'm curious to see if Drake May is going to start right off the bat, or are we going to see Jacoby Brissett? And then the last matchup, early window, Cardinals and the Bills. And the Cardinals will have a full season of Kyler Murray, so I think they're going to win a couple more games than they did last year because they didn't finish with a great record. I still don't look at them as a team that's going to be, competing for a playoff spot. I still think they are, maybe a year or two away. Well, maybe a little bit more than that. I'm not too sure, but I think they'll definitely win more games than they did last year. And, with the Bills, they got a different revamped receiving core. Stephon Diggs is not there anymore. They lost Gabe Davis. So, I mean, you still got Khalil Shakir, who I think is a good player for them. But, they also drafted a receiver, and they brought in several others, Chase Claypool, Valdez-Scantling, however you feel about them. But, that's who they brought in to replace Stephon Diggs. And that's in Buffalo. So, we'll see how that game goes. But, yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the Week 1 slate. Any final thoughts with any of these games?
Just I guess the last thing on it, the Packers and the Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That'll be just interesting, not just because of the game. The game's going to be entertaining, but
Yeah.
just seeing how it's received down there, what the atmosphere is like in a soccer stadium. I think that'll be interesting to watch outside of just what's played on the field.
Yeah, and I've talked about that game a few times. That one I think is one of the better games of Week 1 as well, and it's going to be interesting just having the regular kickoff game on Thursday, then you got a game the following night,
Right.
and then you got Sunday and Monday. So I mean, maybe they'll move a game, they'll flex a game to Saturday just so you got games, 5 days in a row, but because I mean, there's a game pretty much every day of the week except for Tuesday. So maybe they'll put a
Yeah.
game on Tuesday. All right, so we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Christmas games that were announced on Netflix and just give our thoughts on, the games being on Netflix. We'll talk about all that when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Christmas games that were announced on Netflix. So the first game is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is Manny's team. And then the second game will be the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. And those two teams played each other a couple of times last season. And I think these are two pretty good games. The Steelers, of course, their quarterback room is completely different from last year. Now you have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and we'll see how that unfolds throughout the season. The Chiefs, I believe the last time they played there, it was back in 2018, and that was like the first full year that Patrick Mahomes started. So it's been a while since they've been in Pittsburgh. So curious to see how that game is going to be played out. And then, of course, you got the Ravens and the Texans. They played each other a couple times last year. The Ravens won both matchups, and both games were played in Baltimore. And now this game is being played in Houston. And Houston, I think, is going to be, and I think we all can agree, they're going to be a better team this year. So really looking forward to that matchup as well. And let's not forget that, Derrick Henry is now on the Ravens too. And I'm really excited to see how him and Lamar Jackson are going to do together being in the same backfield. So I want to get your guys' opinion on these games, as well as just now Netflix broadcasting games, because we already have Amazon Prime broadcasting games. You have Peacock. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that and the games.
Yeah, with it, it's funny looking at it and how it all played out. With it being week 17, the Steelers playing the Chiefs and the Ravens playing the Texans. I don't know if you guys saw it before, but in week 16, these same teams play, but it's the Steelers playing the Ravens and the Texans playing the Chiefs. So I thought that was pretty funny how it all worked out. But sticking with the Christmas Day games, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling about the same that you are, Kenneth. I'll start with the Steelers game against the Chiefs. Depending on where these teams are in record and just momentum carrying into potentially the playoffs, I think could be a deciding game just to amp up more on the pressure and the stakes on hand. But either way, I think most people have the Chiefs being favored, even though it's in Pittsburgh. They were a little bit, you could say, the worst offensively. We've seen them last year, and then they just got that much better. How the whole situation with Rashee Rice kind of turns out, I think it'll add more if he plays or not. But they're looking pretty complete. Week 17, how they're looking heading into that game in Pittsburgh. It could be interesting if the Steelers make it close, how they're clicking on offense, who's quarterbacking for them, like you mentioned there as well. Will be something to watch. And then for the Steelers, offensively, how much better are they looking? Because this is at the end of the season, which I just keep reiterating, but how Arthur Smith is looking at it as an offensive coordinator by this point will be something to watch. The quarterback situation, and also they have a lot of young pieces as well, a lot of rookies potentially starting. So how they've developed at this point could tell a lot in their record and just moving forward. And then just quickly on the Ravens and the Texans, same thing, playoff implications, seedings could be at stake here with Lamar playing CJ. I like that it's a rematch of the divisional round, and this time being played in Houston. Houston, I think we could all agree, is obviously going to be a lot better. So seeing how all their pieces are clicking at the same point, and I think they have a good chance, just as good as probably the Chiefs or the Bengals or even the Ravens as well for that number one seed. So how they're looking heading into the playoffs, second season for a lot of them, their head coach as well, is something I'll be looking out for, and it should be interesting just from top to bottom.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say, I think it's kind of strange that usually NFL last year they had 3 games on Christmas. I guess they decided to go down to 2. There is no prime time slot. I don't know if that's the fact that it's a Wednesday and they just wanted to change it. But these are 2 good games that they give to Netflix. And I think this Netflix deal kind of just shows where we're heading in this era of sports fans, of streaming for services being we're going into the realm of streaming services being the primary viewship, like primary way to view sports, whether you like it or don't. I happen to dislike it. Last year they put a Peacock game for a wild card game, wasn't met well by the fans. And I think we're just slowly building our way there into primarily streaming services of watching sporting events. You see Hulu, they have a few like live sports that they put they don't have really the rights to it, but they have live sports on their subscription. So I think Netflix really wanted to take the next level and put on a sports game on their channel, which is something I've never seen. I'm interested to see what commentators they bring in and all that. As far as the games, I think these are games between four contenders, number one. On Thanksgiving, they happen to put sometimes they happen to just put teams that can give a Cowboys a bye week, or that first
Yeah, the
game,
Giants.
Giants, Washington. The first game, it's really hit or miss on whether it's competitive or not, just because Detroit has been god awful for so many years up to a few seasons ago. But this is a game. I think these are two fantastic games. I think Pittsburgh, especially late in the season, they're always competitive. They're always in these games. They need these games, especially because they're always on the 6-7 win mark, trying to, sneak into the playoffs, trying to get above 500. That's kind of what they've been like the past few years. But now you have a quarterback in Russell Wilson. I think that gives you a better chance when you're going up against a guy like Pat Mahomes compared to like a Kenny Pickett or a Mason Rudolph. And then the Ravens Texans game, a divisional round rematch. Obviously, the Texans got better, and this could really like be pivotal for determining like a 2 seed potentially, or even a 1 seed, because I think these are two teams that are going to be really up there. And yeah, I just think overall the NFL did a good job giving Netflix two good games, two good quality games.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be interesting now that it's going to be on Netflix. I mean, Netflix is really, like, when you have all these other streaming services, Netflix was kind of like, okay, well, maybe we got to dip our toes now into sports because, they struck that deal with the WWE, and now, they're fresh off of the Tom Brady roast, so now they're like, all right, we got to get, the NFL involved here. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. The NFL is going to really help out with the production and everything, so, yeah, I'm curious to see how, like, the broadcasting teams for it, what they're going to do. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is going to be, I mean, like you said, Emran, this is kind of the direction we're going in, and like, it's not going to slow down. I mean, you're going to have, like, eventually, like, I feel like with CBS and Paramount, there's going to be an exclusive game on Paramount. So it's just only a matter of time for that. But yeah, and as for the games, yeah, I think, like I said before, I think these are two quality games. And let's not forget, Russell Wilson did beat Patrick Mahomes last year. I know Patrick Mahomes was actually sick during the game because I think he was dealing with the flu that week. But still, Russell Wilson did beat Patrick Mahomes. So, and the Steelers defense, I think, is one of the better defenses in the NFL. And, of course, they have their own quarterback on defense in T.J. Watt. And, Manny knows this. They're a completely different team when he's not playing. And, it's, Week 17, these are going to be big games for the Steelers, because I think they're going to be a team that's going to be fighting for a wild card spot, as a lot of other teams are in the AFC, because the AFC is just a loaded conference. You're going to have a lot of teams battling it out for those 3 wild card spots, and I think the Steelers are going to be one of them. And then as for the second game, now it's in Houston, and I think we're going to see a much better game than we had, the previous 2 games when these two teams played against each other. And now you got Stephon Diggs with Houston and Derrick Henry with the Ravens. So, I mean, their stars are all over the place. So, I'm looking forward to these games, although I kind of wish they weren't being played. I kind of just want to enjoy the holiday as opposed to, because last year I had to stress out with my fantasy playoffs, and I just kind of wanted to enjoy the day. And, I mean, who knows where I'm going to be with these games, if I'm even going to be in the playoffs, or I'm going to be, in last, like, trying not to finish in last place. But the NFL, they are a juggernaut. They're a machine, and they dominate Thanksgiving, and now they're going to be trying to, take over Christmas. Because now, with these games on Netflix, you can't just simply change the channel to go to an NBA game. Because the NBA, for the longest time, has been, the one that owns Christmas, and now the NFL is like, all right, well, we're going to put these games on a Wednesday. So, now we'll see how that all plays out. But, yeah, so I think that pretty much just wraps that up. You guys are only joining me for the first 2 segments, so once again, appreciate you guys coming on. And I will talk to you guys in a little bit for our production meeting. But yeah, good stuff as always. And yeah, like I said, I'll see you guys in an hour.
Sweet. Thanks, Kenneth. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, so with that, we are going to take our second break of the show. But before we do that, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, I will talk about the Thanksgiving games as well as the Black Friday game as well. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Thanksgiving games as well as the Black Friday game as well. And again, another thank you to Manny and Emran joining me this week. And make sure to check out their podcast as well. Manny's the host of the Chip Shot Football Podcast, and Emran is the host of the GSMC Soccer Podcast. So make sure to go check those out as well as the other shows. I mean, I know I'm gonna say that towards the end of the show again today, but again, just wanted to send that reminder. So let's get into these games. So the first game on Thanksgiving, this is in Week 13. You got the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. That'll be the first game. That'll be on CBS. A couple of divisional matchups on Thanksgiving, and then you have a divisional matchup the following day on Black Friday. And it's going to be interesting to see where these teams are going to be. The Bears, Caleb Williams is going to be their starter, the rookie quarterback. So it's going to be interesting where the Bears are going to be at that point in the season. For me, the Lions and the Packers are going to be the top two teams in the division, but I'm curious to see, well, in my opinion, but I'm curious to see where the Bears will be at this point. This could be a big game for them. And the Lions, they're looking to snap their losing streak on Thanksgiving because I don't remember, I don't know how long this losing streak has gone on for, but it's been a while. I think maybe the last time they might have won was, I want to say, was it 2016? I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it has been a while. It's either 2015 or 2016. But yeah, it has been a while. Last year, of course, they did lose to the Packers on Thanksgiving, and that's kind of that kind of opened everybody's eyes on the Packers and like, oh, okay. And then the Packers really got it going towards the end of the year, and they ended up making the playoffs. So yeah, the Cowboys. We'll talk about the Cowboys in a second. The Lions are looking to snap that losing streak, so we'll see if they end up doing that. But that's the first game. And then we get to the second game with the Dallas Cowboys. And who are they playing? It's going to be on Fox. Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt on the call. The Dallas Cowboys will be taking on the New York Giants on Thanksgiving. And look, as a Giant fan, I'm going to keep it tame, but why are the Cowboys playing the Giants? And all you see on social media is why is this the matchup? Like, you could have had the Eagles play them on Thanksgiving, and that would have been an intriguing matchup because those two teams are going to be battling it out for the division. But you end up picking the Giants, who last year, the year before, not last year, but the year before that, they played the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Why are they playing them again? You know, and last year the Giants played the Eagles on Christmas. Now, so 3 years in a row now, you got them playing on holidays against divisional opponents who are better than them. And, 2022 at least, the Giants made the playoffs. But here, the Giants are not going to be a very good team this year. I like the direction that they're heading in with their defense, and I feel like they're going to figure out the quarterback situation. But not this year. So it's going to be a tough watch. Trying to enjoy my Thanksgiving meal, and the Giants will be playing the Cowboys. So, yeah, not really too thrilled about the Giants playing on Thanksgiving. Like I said, I think if you wanted to have a divisional game, like the Bears, I think are on the come up. So at least they split with the Lions last year, almost swept them. Now you got a new quarterback in there, a rookie quarterback. So we'll see how Caleb Williams is by this point. Hopefully for them, the early season struggles, if he has any, are out of the way, and the Bears are, fighting for a playoff spot at this point. So the first game could be entertaining. Second game, not so much. Definitely might be a tough watch. And I've said this on a previous show, but the last time that the Giants beat the Cowboys in Dallas, you got to go back to Dak's rookie season. That was a long time ago. So, and I also brought up the last time they beat the Eagles in Philly was 2013. So, yeah, it's been a while since the Giants have won a game in those stadiums. So, yeah, there's kind of a gap in between the Lions and the Bears. Then we get to the late game. This is going to be a good game. You got the Miami Dolphins against the Green Bay Packers. Now, can be a good game. However, this game will be played towards the end of November. It's going to start getting colder. Lambeau Field. And the Dolphins, warm weather team coming over to, the frozen tundra. That might be a little bit of an issue for them. And, it's not going to be, again, this is way in advance. We don't know what kind of weather it's going to be. But it's going to be cold. It's not going to be as cold as that playoff game against the Chiefs, but it's going to be cold. And, you got two young quarterbacks, Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa, who are looking to get paid. And I did mention this in the segments with Manny and Emran, but when I did my AFC East rankings, I did bring it up in the production meeting. And like I said, a lot of, first of all, it was silent and did get some weird looks as to why did you have the Dolphins at 3? Well, I have my reasons, and I did bring them up yesterday. So if you go back and you watch the AFC East rankings, you'll get my reasoning behind my rankings. But yeah, this could be a game late in the season that the Dolphins could need, the Packers could need. The Packers are going to be, I think, a playoff team. The Dolphins, they could be a playoff team as well. Like I said, the AFC is a gauntlet of a conference. I have been saying that. So, yeah, this could be a big game here. And, like I said, you got two young quarterbacks looking to get paid. So, that should be a nice way to end off the night with those two teams. But like I said, the Dolphins are going into cold weather, and we'll see how they respond to that. But I do remember they did play Buffalo in the snow a couple years ago, and that was a competitive game. So we'll see how it goes. But that's the Thanksgiving slate. So that one, the late game's on NBC. So yeah, you got the Bears and the Lions, Cowboys and the Giants, and then the Packers and the Dolphins. And actually, when I was looking at my phone during the break, my friends weren't too crazy about the uniforms. I said they were interesting, but yeah, they do not like the new uniform. So that's funny that they said that. So then the following day, we'll touch upon this quickly. You got the Black Friday game. Last year it was the Dolphins and the Jets. This year it's the Raiders and the Chiefs. Now these two teams played each other. This will be played in Arrowhead, but this was a game that was played on Christmas last year, and the Raiders won that game. So interesting that they put these two teams against each other now on another. I don't know if you want to call Black Friday a holiday, but yeah, it's the day after Thanksgiving. But yeah, should be an interesting game. We'll see who's the starting quarterback at that point, whether it's Gardner Minshew or if it's Aiden O'Connell. And hopefully we see a quarterback on the Raiders just throw a pass and complete a pass after the first quarter, because we didn't see that with the Raiders. They just ran the ball and managed the game, and give them credit, they won the game. So, but yeah, that's the Black Friday game right there. This is the full season now with Antonio Pierce as the head coach, and an intriguing matchup to follow up the triple header from the day before. So yeah, those are the Thanksgiving and Black Friday games. And with that, we are going to take our third break of the show. And then when we come back, I will do my AFC North rankings and talk about the teams in that division, the kind of offseason each team had. And that's what we will do when we come back from our third break of the show. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, still getting used to the new format. The fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the AFC North. I'm going to rank those teams now, so I do have a graphic for that, and I think these rankings are definitely less controversial than the AFC East, so you don't have to worry about me throwing any curveballs at you guys, but these rankings, I think, are pretty fair. So, with the AFC North, this is the best division in football, in my opinion. And I think many people would agree with that. I think all these teams can make the playoffs. Now, it's going to be easier for some, harder for others. But I think you could see all these teams in the playoffs. I think each team can control a playoff spot. But is that going to happen? We'll have to see. But that's my opinion. So at number 4, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said yesterday, just because I have a team, like I had the Dolphins ranked at 3, doesn't mean I think they're going to be bad. I just think it's the other two teams were better, or are going to finish with better records. With the Steelers, I just feel like, I just think the other 3 teams are better. And I think the Steelers are going to be in the thick of it towards the end of the year. And they're going to be trying to get one of those wild card spots. They made changes at quarterback. In the draft, they, addressed the offensive line. And they also did draft a receiver as well, as they had to, because Deontay Johnson they traded. So, it's going to be interesting how Russell Wilson does, and whether or not, he still has the job towards the end of the year, and maybe if he's not playing well, they go to Justin Fields and see what they have in Fields. But, yeah, I think the Steelers, I think they could finish around 9 wins. And maybe they did win 10 games last year. But now you got Deshaun Watson's going to be back healthy, and they did split with the Browns last year. They actually lost the game that Deshaun Watson didn't even play in. And then you got Joe Burrow coming back, and the Steelers did sweep the Bengals. That's not going to happen this time around. So it's going to be interesting, but I think for me, the Steelers coming fourth. Again, like I said, I think the other 3 teams are just better, in my opinion. But then we get to number 3, and I got the Browns. And they have some concerns at quarterback. as well, because Deshaun Watson is coming off of an injury, and even before that, wasn't playing great. And that, I think, will ultimately hold the Browns back. But do I still think that they could be a playoff team? Well, look at what they did last year. Deshaun Watson gets hurt. You had, DTR starting. You had P.J. Walker. Joe Flacco came in towards the end of the year, and they were able to make the playoffs. Jeff Driscoll started the last game of the regular season. And you also had a lot of injuries, to the offensive line, to your backfield with Nick Chubb going down, and they still made it. So, and when Deshaun Watson got hurt, I mean, they were coming off of that big win against the Ravens, that comeback win against the Ravens. So, I still think the Browns are going to be a good team, and they got one of the best defensive players in the NFL, like the Steelers do. They got Myles Garrett. Steelers got T.J. Watt, of course. So, the defense is going to be a force once again in 2024. And, if Nick Chubb comes back and is healthy, that adds another dimension to this offense. The Browns also went out and they traded for Jerry Jeudy, and they gave him a contract extension, to go along with Amari Cooper and David Njoku, who had a good year. So the Browns, I think, should be a good team. But I think the other two teams, like the Steelers, I think the other two teams in the division are better. And I think the Browns and the Steelers are going to be teams that are fighting for wild card spots. But I like the Browns' chances of making the playoffs better than I do the Steelers. Although, 3 of the 4 teams here did make the playoffs last year. So, but yeah, the Steelers at 4, Browns at 3. Now, this is where it gets really tough for me, because I think the Ravens and with the healthy Bengals squad, I think these two teams are neck and neck. However, I'm going to give the Ravens the respect that they deserve, and I'm going to put the Bengals at 2. There is still some concern with Joe Burrow, and I know I haven't touched upon this, but there is some concern with the wrist still, even though he is healthy. I know I didn't touch upon it this week. I'll probably get to it next week, because there's no show tomorrow. Just another reminder that there's going to be no show tomorrow, and no show Monday. So I'll see. Tuesday is when maybe I'll dive into it, but there's still a little bit of concern there, and also just he has dealt with injuries. He was dealing with the calf injury before he injured his wrist. So, there's still some concern there. But if Joe Burrow comes into the season healthy, the Bengals are going to be one of the best teams. And it's going to be between them and the Ravens. But what I think is, I don't know, I guess unique, is that, you look at the Browns and the Bengals, right? Joe Burrow struggles in Cleveland. Last year to open the season, Browns-Bengals, Browns dominated that game. Bengals came out flat. Now, you could also look at, Burrow was playing hurt. But even the year before that, I believe, either it was the year before that or for some reason, though, Burrow just has a problem playing in Cleveland. Don't know why, but he has a problem against the Browns. Because I know I think it was when Jacoby, actually, it might have been the year Jacoby Brissett was the starter. So it was the year before that. Yeah, he just didn't play well in that game either. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, with the healthy Bengals squad, and of course, they still got some things to figure out with a couple of their players, T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson, looking for new contracts. So, but I mean, for the moment, those guys are still on the team, and they're going to be on the team probably this year, and then after this year, we'll see what happens. But they did draft T. Higgins' replacement, most likely. The Bengals, they also drafted a tackle. So, listen, as long as Joe Burrow is protected and he's healthy, the Bengals are going to be really good. But I'm going to put them at 2. And then at 1, I got the Ravens. Like I said, I'm going to give the Ravens the respect they deserve. Lamar Jackson coming off of an MVP, another MVP. Their defense was pretty good last year as well. And now you add Derrick Henry to the mix. And I know I talked about this with Manny and Emran. That's something I'm really looking forward to, is seeing both of those guys in the same backfield. And I think Derrick Henry is in a great situation with the Ravens. This is a team that loves to run the football. And, he's on the older side. He's now 30, but still got some mileage left on him. And I think this was a solid team to end up on. And I think he should have a big year. And for me, listen, Lamar Jackson, he was injured the last couple of seasons prior to last year. And when he's healthy, you see what the Ravens can do and the team that they can be. Now, they did fall a little bit short last year because, once again, Lamar Jackson did lose to Patrick Mahomes. But when he's healthy, you could, like I said, you see the kind of team the Ravens can be. And they were blowing out some teams, some good teams. They blew out the Lions. And, look what they did to the Dolphins, too, late in the season. Now, again, you could look at the Dolphins and they might be a little bit, they were kind of fraudulent, some people would say. But, that offense. But if you go back to 2022, the previous year, Ravens were up by a lot in that game. The Dolphins came back and beat them. So I kind of thought it was going to be the same thing. We were going to see a shootout, but we didn't. I think the Ravens put up like 50 points on them. But you see when the Ravens are healthy what they can do, what kind of team they can be. And for me, I'm going to put them at 1. But it's very close between them and the Bengals. Because, again, if Joe Burrow is healthy, we're going to see some good battles between these two teams. So, just to kind of repeat myself here. So, the Steelers I have at 4. Browns at 3. Bengals at 2. Ravens at 1. So, that's the rankings there. Let me know what you guys think about the rankings. What would your rankings be? Again, I think these rankings are they are not as controversial as the ones from yesterday with the AFC East. That's probably the most controversial I'm going to get with my rankings. So, next time we will do, I think next is going to be the AFC South. So we got 2 more divisions to cover, and then that will be it. But the other thing, too, is I do want to go through each team's schedule as well and just kind of be like, oh, this game could be a win, this could be a loss. Like, I do want to do that as well in the coming weeks. Again, just, because, look, we're halfway through May, but we still got a lot of ground to cover before we get to next season. So I do want to go through each team's schedule. I think next week we'll go through the primetime games. I know we did the holidays, but we'll go through the Sunday night games, Thursday night, Monday night. There's actually, I was going through the Thursday night slate last night, and the Thursday night slate usually is pretty weak, but for the most part, there are some pretty good games there. But now we got to see them play out first. But at least, like, on paper, you got some good matchups. So I want to get into all that next week. And like I said, we'll start going through, teams' individual schedules as well. But yeah, so that's pretty much, again, let me know what you guys think about the AFC North rankings. So we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss Justin Jefferson, the latest on his contract situation. I'll talk about some comments made by head coach Kevin O'Connell regarding his contract situation, and that is what we will do to conclude the show for today. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to discuss the latest news on, the latest updates on Justin Jefferson's contract situation. Now, this is more just talking about what head coach Kevin O'Connell had to say, his recent comments. So I just wanted to get into that. So he made an appearance on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams on Monday. And this is what he said regarding the contract situation with Jefferson. I know everything's going to get worked out there. Justin knows the love and admiration that I have for him, and he knows he's such a big part of what we do around here. That's on the field, that's off the field. He brings such a great energy to our building every single day, and he's the ultra competitor. As far as when he steps between the white lines, very few people are able to do the things that he's able to do, but it's how he goes about his business, how he works, how he pushes his teammates to get better. Justin Jefferson is a huge part of the organization. And I think that's what he had to say on the topic. And I mean, you got to look at also, you have Jamar Chase and you have CeeDee Lamb that are going to be looking for new deals. We'll see if where T. Higgins ends up, because he'll get a new deal elsewhere. You also have Brandon Ayuk that's looking for a new deal. There are a lot of receivers that are looking for new deals. And Justin Jefferson, right now, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, you got Tyreek Hill, who's also up there. I mean, the receivers I just mentioned with CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. I don't think Brandon Ayuk is in that conversation, but he's he's a little bit outside of that group. But Brandon Ayuk's a solid wide receiver as well. But Justin Jefferson, to me, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I think if Devontae Adams was still playing with Aaron Rodgers, I'd still look at him as the best wide receiver. But he still did pretty good with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell last year. But yeah, Justin Jefferson to me is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and he's going to get paid a lot of money. And the Vikings, they got to do everything they can to keep this guy. And it's going to be interesting because, the only quarterback that he's really played with over the course of his career outside of last year, because Kirk Cousins got hurt, is Kirk Cousins. And now you got Sam Darnold, you got a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy that, we'll see if he ends up starting week 1 or if it's going to be Sam Darnold. But, listen, I think Justin Jefferson's going to be fine. I think he's going to put up big numbers no matter who's throwing him the ball. But, it's going to be interesting because Kirk Cousins is the only quarterback that he's known. And now it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And, it could be he's waiting to see, what kind of money some of these other receivers get. So he can get paid that kind of money. I just knocked out my earpiece. But, I mean, he's a guy that definitely could reset the market. And rightfully so, because he's, like I said, to me, best wide receiver in the NFL. And, unfortunate that last year, got hurt. Still put up, I think he still put up good numbers. Did he get 1,000 yards last year? Yeah, he still had 1,000 yards. 1,074 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. And how many games did he end up missing? Let's see. So he still getting 1,000 yards despite missing several games is impressive. Yeah, he missed 10 games. He didn't miss 10 games. Sorry. He played in 10 games. He missed 7. That's impressive. And you go back to his rookie season back in 2016, 1,400 yards receiving, 88 receptions, 7 touchdowns. Then played in 17 games the next 2 seasons, 108 receptions in 2021, 1,616 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Then 2022, 128 receptions, 1,809 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then had 68 receptions in 10 games last year. Like I said, 1,074 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. And again, that's with him missing time. And also, he had Nick Mullins playing quarterback and Joshua Dobbs and Jaron Hall, who really didn't play that much. So, I mean, but that just shows how talented he is. And let's go through the games that, he wasn't playing with Kirk Cousins. So, so let's see. He came back. So he came back against the Raiders. He only had 20. Well, actually, he did get hurt again in that game. He had 27 yards receiving. Then the following week, that was with Nick Mullins at quarterback. He had 7 receptions for 84 yards. Then against the Lions at home, that was also with Nick Mullins. He had 6 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown. Then on New Year's Eve against the Packers, I mean, that was an interesting. I forgot about this because they started Jaron Hall, and then they put in Nick Mullins when the game was out of reach, when they probably should have just started Nick Mullins. Now, would they have won the game against the Packers because Jordan Love was playing really well? Probably not, but still, it was interesting that they started Jaron Hall and they pulled the plug on him immediately, and then they put in Nick Mullins. But yeah, Jefferson had 5 receptions for 59 yards. And then against the Lions, final week of the regular season in Detroit, he had 12 receptions for 192 yards and a touchdown. And that was with Nick Mullins at quarterback. So still, put up good numbers in games despite the issues at quarterback. So whatever the Vikings decide to do, whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson is going to put up good numbers. And for J.J. McCarthy, like I said, I think he's in a good situation. Offensive-minded head coach, you got playmakers around you. And you know what? Maybe you don't start right away. So now, again, Sam Darnold is kind of like a journeyman at this point because, he was with the Jets. They traded him to the Panthers. Then he ends up on the 49ers. Now he's with the Vikings. So he's kind of bounced around a little bit. But, Sam Darnold, you let him start. You let J.J. McCarthy sit behind him. I'm not saying Sam Darnold is going to, be a mentor to him. But, at least that gives J.J. McCarthy time to learn the offense. And then when they feel he is ready, they could put him in and not just throw him right in to start out the year. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Because the only I guess the only 2 quarterbacks that I know, I know Caleb Williams is definitely starting. We know that. But the other ones, it's going to be interesting. Well, Michael Penix is not going to start. We'll see with Bo Nix and the Broncos if he starts right away. Drake May with the Patriots if they want to start Jacoby Brissett first. We'll see. But and Jaden Daniels, it seems like he's going to start day one. But the Bears flat out announced like, hey, this is our QB1, Caleb Williams. He's starting from day one. So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it's a matter of when, not if, when it comes to Justin Jefferson, because Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. You can't lose him. Now you have Jordan Addison there, who I think is going to be who was a good player for them last year, and he's going to continue to be a good player for him, playing opposite of Jefferson. But you can't let him go. You got to make sure he gets paid and you keep him around, especially because you have a young quarterback waiting. And, you want to surround him with as much talent as possible. And having the best receiver there that in the NFL, that definitely will help the growth of J.J. McCarthy. So we'll just have to wait and see. But, yeah, that's pretty much it with the show for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, another thank you to Manny and Emran joining me on the show today, being guests. Like I said, you're going to see, we started it last week, going to continue it for the next several weeks here. Hosts appearing on other host shows, so make sure to look out for that. And yeah, a special thanks to them for appearing on the show once again. And like I said, there will be no show tomorrow. There will be no show on Monday. However, we will be back on Tuesday. So hopefully you don't miss me too much. But yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys again with that. And like I said, make sure to check out Manny's show, the Chip Shot Football Podcast, as well as Emran's show. He is the host of the Soccer Podcast. So, like I said, we're trying to cover every sport. Like I said, you got soccer now. There's golf. There's hockey. Women's sports. So, yeah, and of course you got the big three with football, basketball, and baseball as well. Or at least that's my big three. And then the core four is you throw hockey in there. But yeah, but we pretty much have every sport covered. So yeah, make sure to check out all the other shows as well. We greatly appreciate that. And yeah, so with that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Be back again on Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.